So, Emma,
Yeah.
Welling, tell us about yourself.
I come from a family of 5. I have 2 brothers, older. Ian's my oldest brother. He's 24, or is he 23? I think he's 23. And he is married and lives on the other side of the state. And my other brother, Ethan, is 21, and he goes to Grand Valley. And then my mom works at Grand Valley. She's a math professor. And my dad works at a church.
When you say you take things where you want to go, like what pops in your head about that? What does that mean?
I think about my thoughts a lot, which I don't think a lot of people my age do. But I just like to see what I do, how that makes me who I am. I observe people a lot. It's kind of creepy, but I like to just observe people and be like, why do they do the things they do? And then I just write about things, and I read other people's things to see what they observe in the world, just to get different views of things.
And that's kind of so that was my next question is like, so how do you reflect? So you reflect in your writing.
Mm-hmm.
And what do you write? Where do you write?
I have a lot of Google Docs that just fill up, but anything that's like okay for people to read, I have my own website, and so I post it on my blog, which I decided this year to just spend the $9 a year to get a domain. So I got emmawelling.com.
Nice, excellent. On that website, what can we find?
It's a lot of my thoughts and just expressed in words. Like, one of my recent posts was I'm not living, I'm only surviving. I had that one. And then I had a poem that I wrote, which was why you shouldn't write, you might be a PK if. And I posted that one on there.
Good. Yeah, PK being
Pastor's kid.
pastor's kid,
Oh.
yes.
What is the I'm not living, I'm surviving about?
It was about how I feel like there's just so much stress that I'm not living life. I'm just kind of trying to get by, get all the things I need done, but I'm not in the moment.
Yeah.
So I was just reflecting on how do I get myself in the moment?
A great thing that you obviously, like you said before, that a lot of teenagers don't do is they don't reflect or think about their thoughts. And you're doing it through writing,
Yeah.
which is really cool.
Yeah. I don't know, I've had a lot of stress from everything that's happened with my dad when he was in the hospital, and just kind of thinking about the future, that freaks me out. When I don't have a plan, it makes me go crazy, because I like to have everything sorted out. I know I'm just going to follow this plan, but of course there are things that happen, and then you don't make a plan B, and then it's just chaos.
Can you talk about what happened with your dad?
Yeah, March 31st of this year, he was rushed into the hospital because he had a brain aneurysm that had ruptured, and he was in the hospital he was in the ICU for 21 days, in rehab for 10 days. In May, he came back home. They thought it would take 6 months to a year for him to get better, but it only took him 3 months.
They thought first that he might not survive.
Yeah, there was a 15% chance that he would make it to the hospital alive. If you have an aneurysm, you're born with it. So it's something my dad has always had, and he always complained of having really bad migraines. And the day before, he said that he just had a migraine that wouldn't go away. And then the day of, he said he was at work, and he went back into the music library in the worship department at church, and because they pump a bunch of cold air in there and it's dark, so he was just laying down there, and he was just crying. He's not a crier, and he said that his migraine hurt so bad that he was crying. He started throwing up, and then his coworkers found him, and he wasn't really responsive, and so they called 911.
How were you told about this?
My brother and my mom had left because they were going to pick up my dad because they heard he threw up at work. So they were like, oh, it's probably one of those, he has the flu, and when we get there, he'll be discharged, and we'll just take him home. My brother was like, So, Dad doesn't have the flu. He has blood in his brain, and he's in critical condition. And my first response was just like, you're kidding, right? Like, you're joking. Like, yeah, I was had half an hour until somebody picked me up, and then half an hour to Grand Rapids, and I saw my dad in the ER, and he was just, like, he was out. His body was just convulsing. I was like, I was in there for like 5 seconds, and was like, nope, I can't do this.
So how do you cope with this?
It was really hard, I'm not gonna lie, and we actually had some, like, arguments about this once he was back at home, but it caused me to have a lot of anxiety. I had no parents at home because my mom stayed with my dad 24/7, and so just me, my brother and his wife, because they were living with us at the time, and my cousin who was living with us at the time, and we were just kind of like, it felt like we were in an apartment because we were just kind of like all living there, but we never really saw each other. It would be selfish of me to like need attention because my dad's the one who's in serious condition. So it was just a lot of anxiety built up, and then that's when I started getting panic attacks. It was the scariest thing I have ever had to face. I remember that I was actually your class. I was sitting in your class, and I was having like a really, like, it was a great day, and like my dad was going to be discharged. He was going to be home the next day, and I was just sitting there, and my hands and feet started to get numb, and I'm like, well, this is weird. And then somebody at my table, I think it was Emma Leach, she told me that, like, you look really pale right now, like, you look sick. I'm like, I think I'm just gonna lay down. It's like I couldn't control my thoughts anymore. Like, the anxiety had taken over my mind, and was just like, oh my gosh, I'm dying right now. My body just started to shake, and I felt like I was gonna pass out. But I never did, and I hated that because it was like, okay, I'm in the middle, and it's like, am I gonna pass out or am I not gonna? Like, I know I've had a lot of people tell me who don't understand, like, anxiety. They're like, well, just try to do something positive, like listen to music or do some yoga. Like, you can't do anything when you're in the midst of panic. When I first had them, I didn't know what to do, and so you just kind of have to wait it out. Like, eventually you either fall asleep or you just start breathing again. But now I don't get them as frequently because I went to my doctor and actually am on some medications for my anxiety to control it. Sometimes I get them at night, and it just is like this weird, like, it's like this weird, like, hot sensation in my chest, and then it's like, I don't feel like I'm actually in reality. I feel like I'm watching my life through, like, a movie. Like, it doesn't feel like I'm controlling myself.
You're graduating, and you're graduating in a week and a half.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
I remember in the summer, so when I ended the spring trimester, I was just kind of like, I'm done with school. We had taken the ACT, and it was like, oh, I'm just so burnt out from testing. And then I had to take my exams, and it was like, oh, this is just so horrible. Like, I'm ready to move on in life. And so this past summer, I was just like stewing in my thoughts about my like angst of school. And I remember we were just sitting in the living room, and I was like, I just wish I could graduate early. And my mom's like, does your school even allow that? I'm like, I don't know, but I really want to. And my parents don't normally like agree with me with things right away, and both my parents were like, well, I would be open to the idea of you graduating early. I walked down to Mr. Kokenauer's office and I was like, don't know if this is a possibility, but is there any way I can graduate early? And he's like, I was hoping you'd ask me about this. Like, or if you're up for the challenge, you can do it in one trimester, but you will have to take some online classes. I'm taking my 5 classes at school, and then I have 3 online classes, so I'm taking 8 classes in total.
Wow.
And
Come November, or
Before
Thanksgiving.
yeah.
That's it.
I have something to be very thankful for. But I actually want to do some internships and job shadowing with these 9 months I have off from school.
You could give any advice to people, anyone, is in general, maybe people with anxiety or students who aren't graduating.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I mean, sure, maybe anxiety, but also like, yeah, you're done with school, like,
The thing that I wish someone had told me when I first started high school is there's always someone there. Like, you don't have to worry about, like, stupid high school drama because there's so much more to life than that. There's always someone who's willing to listen. Like,
thanks, Emma, for being on the share chair.
yeah.
Congratulations
Thanks.
about everything. Thank you for listening to this episode of The Share Chair. Stay tuned next week for a new episode.